I'm very happy to welcome everybody to today's Facebook Live program about the coronavirus, about Ayurveda, and how Ayurveda can help you to build your immunity to the coronavirus. Now, let me just share with you to begin with a little bit about what I will be talking about. I'm going to start off going through some of the fundamental facts that I really want you to know. These are things that you probably have heard on the news, but maybe I can clarify them for you. So I'm going to go through just the facts because there is some misinformation out there, and misinformation creates a lot of anxiety in people. So we're going to go through the facts. We're going to talk about prevention, which of course everybody is talking about prevention. Prevention is sometimes said to be the best medicine, and it's very wise. So we're going to talk about what you can do to avoid exposure to the coronavirus. And we're going to focus a lot of attention on what you can do to build your immunity, so that if you are exposed, that you're less likely to come down with a serious illness. And if you do get sick, we're all going to talk about self-care and what you can do in order to take care of yourself. So these are the various topics that I'll be covering as we go through this talk today. And I'm also going to be taking your questions. So if you have questions, you can type them in. My assistants are monitoring the page, and they'll take your questions. They'll be bringing them to me. And at the end, we'll have some time for questions. So let's just start with some basic facts. Okay, the coronavirus is a virus. It's not a bacteria. It's not a fungi. It's a virus. And that's what makes it so difficult to manage and so difficult to treat, because it's not responsive to antibiotics. There are some antiviral medications that have been developed for various viruses. They've not been tested against the coronavirus. So for now, it is pretty much assumed that this is not something that can be treated. That if you do get the coronavirus, your body's going to have to manage the virus itself through its own immune system. That's why we're going to be talking about how to build your immune system and help your immune system to be as strong as possible. Now, the coronavirus is also a virus that you contract through breathing it in. You get it through your mouth, you get it through your nose. And that's important to know because you don't get it through your hands. And so if you touch something that has been exposed to the virus and you get it on your hands, you don't have to worry. Okay, you do not have to worry. It does not enter through your skin. It enters through receptors in your nose and receptors in your mouth. There's been some debate about whether or not it can be contracted through the eyes. And there seem to be differing opinions about that. And the consensus is that it would be more difficult to contract it through your eyes. Is it possible? Could there be a case out there? Yes, but it's less likely because you don't have the receptor sites for the virus. It would have to travel maybe from your eyes through your circulatory system to nearby receptors in your respiratory system. So you're less likely to get it through your eyes. Now, how do you get it? You get it because water droplets or the virus touches your mouth, it touches your nose, and maybe touches your eyes. All right. So if you get it on your hands and then you touch your mouth, you touch your nose, that's the greatest risk. It's not the hands, it's touching your mouth and touching your nose. Okay. And maybe touching your eyes. The virus can live for a long time on surfaces. So nobody knows exactly how long it will live. This is very important for me to express to you. Because this is a new virus, this is not something that anyone knows everything about. And so there are unknowns because every virus acts a little bit differently. And so it is presumed that this virus can live on surfaces for anywhere from 24 hours to 1 week, maybe even a little longer. There have been reports from various epidemiologists and virologists that because they don't know, it could live on a surface for 10 days. So if you touch that surface, then you get exposed, and then if you touch your mouth and your nose, you tend to get it. But that's the most common means of transmission is touching your nose, touching your mouth. Now, if you do get sick, the outcome depends upon the health of your immune system. But I want to emphasize that many people get many viruses throughout the course of their life, and your immune system is used to handling them. You have an immune system that is designed to handle viruses, to handle every aspect of a virus. As long as you're healthy, then your body is going to be able to manage this. And if you're healthy, this won't be much worse than any other cold or flu that you've had in the past. There's a lot that's unknown. Okay, is this worse than the flu, for instance? The flu is a particular virus. It's a family of viruses called the influenza viruses. This is a different family of viruses, the coronavirus family. But even different flu viruses respond differently, and different coronaviruses are different from each other. So MERS and SARS are also coronaviruses, but that doesn't mean they're exactly the same as this one, or that they'll behave exactly the same. A lot's unknown. All right. So based on what I've told you so far, a few common sense things in order to stay safe. And the first is, and you've heard this before, wash your hands regularly. Wash your hands with soap and water. Keep them under the water for 20 seconds. That's one of the best ways to keep your hands clean. And then if you touch your nose and you touch your mouth, you're going to be just fine, all right, because your hands have been cleaned. But we don't clean our hands all the time. And so we're constantly touching surfaces. And other people are constantly moving through our lives, and they may spread it. And so the next step would be to use something like this, just a typical hand sanitizer. And you can periodically use a hand sanitizer on your hands. Now, not all hand sanitizers are the same. If you can find one in the market that is based in ethyl alcohol, those last longer on your hands. They can sometimes last many, many hours and be effective, which means if you do it once, you're pretty much guarded for the rest of your day, even if you touch a surface. Okay, but if you wash your hands with soap and water, you have to reapply. So keep that in mind. You might want to carry, if you can get them, they're hard to get now. If you can carry one of these hand sanitizers with you, that'll help. Now, you might want to take the next step. And this is all a personal decision. Everybody has to make their own personal decisions about whether or not they want to wear a simple face mask. This is a simple face mask right here. This is what you see when you go into a hospital and you walk in, and on the counter they have these for you to pick up. They have them at drugstores. They have them at all different kinds of places. They're easy to put on, right? They're easy to put on, and they prevent you from touching your nose and touching your mouth. And that's really the best that they do. These face masks are not ideal for protecting you against the coronavirus in terms of somebody coughing and sneezing on you. It could get in. They're not airtight. Viruses are very, very small, and they could migrate through these masks. However, they're embedded in water droplets. And most of those water droplets are going to hit the mask and not go any further if somebody coughs or sneezes on you. So even this provides you with some protection, not enough to think that you're bulletproof from the virus, but it does provide you with some protection. But the greatest gift that this gives you is that it prevents you from touching your nose and your mouth. It means even if you get it on your hands, touch your nose and your mouth, you don't have to worry about it because it's just going to get onto here. Nothing is foolproof. Could the virus migrate from your hand to the surface of the mask, make its way through the mask to your respiratory? Yeah, it could, but it's just less likely. And this is about doing what you can do to minimize your risk. There is no bulletproof way to make sure you never get this except to isolate yourself. Okay. Now, there's another mask that is out there, and it's called an N95 mask. You've probably heard about these masks right here. These are made from a different material. It's designed differently. These masks are able to prevent the virus from moving through the mask. So these are the best masks. These masks, if you're wearing them, you're closer to bulletproof, but you're still not bulletproof because they have to fit properly, and no mask fits perfectly, but it reduces the risk down dramatically. Now, you've probably heard about these masks. They're very hard also to get now. These masks, they always say you have to put them on properly in order for them to be effective. So all properly means it's not brain surgery. That's all there is two straps. One goes above your ear, one goes below your ear. And it has a metal stay in it right here. And this is for the nose pinch right there. And you want to pinch all along the nose so that a form fits all around your nose, right around here. And then you want to make sure that it's not loose on you. And there are some that come in different sizes. So ideally, you'd want to have the best size. The better the fit, the better the protection is going to be. Any protection, though, is still giving you some protection. Now, you'll hear in the news a lot that the best use of this is if you're already sick, because if you cough or sneeze into it, it's going to prevent the water droplets from exiting. And so it's protecting other people. Uh, they say you don't really need it if you're not already sick. Uh, the truth is that if you had one of these on and somebody coughed and sneezed right next to you, it would protect you. But these are in such short supply that they're asking people not to go out and to buy these because they want them for healthcare centers and health workers and hospitals. And so they don't want people just panicking and trying to get these. Okay. So if you happen to have been able to get one, you already have them, well, then you can use it. They're also reusable. You don't have to throw them away at the end of each day, but I would wipe it down if you were in a crowded place with a antiseptic. They're not reusable if they've been very handled. Okay, then it can damage it. All right. So you know about the N95 masks, or there's N97, N99. At least an N95 is what is considered to be the most protective for viruses. You know about the basic mask, and you know about hand sanitizers. I'm going to get to later making your own hand sanitizer because these are in short supply right now. Okay. All right. We've talked about that. Let's talk about gloves. Nitrile gloves or even latex gloves. These are gloves that you can wear. You see them in hospitals. You see them at the airport. You see TSA always wearing these kinds of gloves as well. They protect your hands from any kind of bacteria or any kind of virus. And so this is a minimal benefit because if you are not wearing a mask and you touch your nose and your mouth after touching something with a glove on, you still get it. It's just an extension. So it's really, gloves are better when something could migrate into your body through your skin. But it does provide you with another level of care, because if you're in a place where you don't have sanitizer, you don't wash your hands, at least after you're there, you can peel it off and you can throw it away. So gloves also minimize your exposure a little bit more. Now, if you're going to be in a very crowded place, and right now a lot of places are not having gatherings because they don't want people in close quarters. But if you are in close quarters, then these are things you can do in order to minimize the consequences. So you could wear the masks, you can wear the gloves, you can bring hand sanitizer with you. There's also a lot of wipes, antiseptic wipes you can carry with you. So for instance, if you're on an airplane, you can wipe down the seat, you can wipe down the armrest between you, and these are more things that you can do. Everything that you do lowers the risk a little bit more of contracting the virus. Now, there's one last thing before we get into more things that you can do for yourself. I want you to always remember that even if you get the virus, it's not the end. Okay, if you listen to the news today, you might think it is. Every year, there are going to be people who contract viruses, and some people get a little bit sick, some people get moderately sick, some people get very sick, and some people die. And it's always a small percentage of people that die. Usually, of those that are diagnosed, maybe 2 to 3% are expected to die, and those are going to be individuals who are immune compromised. Immune compromised means you're either very old or older. They say over the age of 60, but it really depends on your health, because even over the age of 60, you can be very healthy. Okay, but over the age of 60, people are more likely to have other health conditions. Also, if you're very young, under the age of 2, you're at higher risk. Right, and the younger you are and the older you are, the higher your risk and the more likely you're going to be among that 2 or 3%. It doesn't mean just because you're older or younger, you are going to be. It's going to be a small percentage, even of people who are above those ages. But you're at the greatest risk, so you have to take the greatest care. And everyone else in the middle, much lower rates of severe infection. So I think that's very important to know. All right, a couple of other public health tips. Everybody's used to shaking hands when you meet somebody else and you're saying hello. So there's a cultural shift that's going to happen right now for the next couple of months where shaking hands is just something to avoid. You don't want to spread it. It's one of the ways in which viruses spread. So avoid that. You can fist bump. You can do all kinds of things other than that to say hello to people. Also, if you have antiseptic wipes, keep them around and wipe off doorknobs and wipe off the light switches once a day, at least once a day, or maybe at the beginning of the day, the end of the day. It'll last for a while, the antiseptic quality that's on there, and prevent other people from picking it up. Just more public safety things that you can do. All right, wash your clothes regularly. That's one more thing to do because it'll live on your clothing. Even if it's not on your hands, you can get it on your clothing, and you want to wash your clothes. All right, a few things now. Let's shift to your immune system and building up the health of your immune system. The first thing that I'm going to do is go through a few things that people do that compromises their own immune system, that if you're doing this and you can stop, you want to stop. Because if you do these things, then you will naturally, your immune system will naturally be better prepared to fight the infection. These are just some common behaviors. So the first thing is stop or decrease your alcohol consumption. When you drink alcohol, it disturbs your immune system, right? You know that it disturbs your nervous system because that's what the buzz is all about. But it also disturbs your immune system. And so if you are dependent upon drinking, or you even have one or two drinks, it does decrease your immune system. Think of your white blood cells as getting drunk with you. All right, and they're the ones that are supposed to be doing their job to fight the infection. So you really do want to avoid alcohol, or at least lower your consumption. The more you lower it, you bring it down, you increase the functioning of your immune system. Number two, tobacco. Tobacco is irritating to the mouth, the throat, the respiratory system, the very tissues that are necessary in order to fight the infection. This is where your receptors are. Your body's immune system has to come to the surface of your respiratory system to the receptor sites in order to begin this process of your immunity. And if you're smoking cigarettes, then you are irritating the called the epithelial layer of the respiratory system, and that's going to make it more difficult for your immune system to fight the infection. So if you're a smoker, you're at higher risk. If you're a drinker, you're at higher risk. These are things that we do that lowers our own immune system. All right, the next one is the use of drugs. Drugs that are not necessary for life support for you should not be taken. In other words, let's say you're a diabetic. I'm not talking about not taking your insulin. I want you to take your insulin. Let's say you're mentally unstable and you're taking a drug for your mental stability and you need that, you require that, by all means, continue to take that. But many drugs suppress your immune system, particularly drugs like opiate drugs, as an example. And oftentimes, anti-anxiety medicines and antidepressant medicines can also interfere with your immune system. So if you don't need them, don't take them. It's just something to really keep in mind, because when you suppress your body's physiology, you're also suppressing your immune function, and you don't want to do that. But again, life-threatening drugs that you need, and in other words, if you don't take it, it's going to threaten your health and your well-being to a great extent, then by all means, take those drugs. So be discerning about what drugs you're choosing to take right now. Now, then there are some things that you can do that are just generalized to boost up your immune system. Very common things. We haven't even gotten into the specifics of Ayurveda yet. More fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables contain the micronutrients and the phytochemicals that boost up the function of your immune system and are going to help your body to fight viruses. Viruses actually are pieces of genetic material that get inside your cell, and they bind with your RNA and your DNA, and your body has the ability to actually go inside the cell and cut and splice out the genes that are on that virus that disrupt your body. Your body has an incredible immune system, but it needs the proper support in order to be able to do its job. So the real fuel for your immune system comes from fruits and vegetables. Okay, so make sure that you take in a lot more than you are, because most people are not getting enough fruits and vegetables. It contributes to a lot of disease. Now, the next thing is exercise. you do want to exercise, you do want to get out, and you do want to walk around, you do want to exercise, mild to moderate exercise. If you overdo it, if you push yourself too hard, you can weaken your immune system if you exhaust yourself. I'm not talking about going to the gym and working yourself until you're exhausted. But every day, some mild to moderate exercise that increases your respiratory rate is really good for your respiratory system and highly recommended. Now, let's talk about diet just a little bit further. This fundamental principle is unique to Ayurveda, but it's something that everybody can easily pay attention to. And this is true no matter what your diet is. Even if your diet's very, very healthy, avoid overeating. When you overeat, you know how tired you feel because you've overeat, even if you take in good, healthy food and you've taken in too much of it. Ayurveda says that if you do that, that's going to suppress your digestive system. We use the word agni. It's going to suppress your agni, which means that the metabolism of your entire body is going to be affected by it. Think of it this way. When you overeat, you feel tired, right? So do your white blood cells. So if you're overeating and you're feeling, a little more lethargic, think that your immune system is also a little bit more lethargic. So you want to only eat until you're 3/4 full. That's going to allow your immune system to be as healthy as it can be. All right. So of course, choose healthy foods and eat them to the proper quantity. That's very important. Now, relaxation is really important. If you're stressed out, that lowers your immune system. Yes, stress decreases your immune system. Every thought that's going on in your head, every feeling that's going on in your head is biochemically based, neurochemically based. Those neurochemicals have been shown to affect receptor sites on every cell in your body. In other words, the cells of your body respond to your thoughts and to your feelings. It makes sense to reduce your stress and to stay positive. The more positive you are, the more confident you are, the healthier you're going to be. Let's talk about that. Confidence, self-confidence is an essential part of your well-being. Now, self-confidence doesn't mean to tell yourself something is not true when it is true. Self-confidence is knowing that your body is prepared to handle whatever comes, that you are prepared to handle whatever comes, and that everything will ultimately be okay. The Ayurvedic word for this is swastha. Swastha means to be established in yourself. It means to be solid in who you are. And we only, from an Ayurvedic perspective, we become solid in ourselves when we feel that connectedness to something greater than ourselves. And you can call it anything you like. You can call it God. You can call it the great mystery. You can call it simply being more selfless, more nature, being connected to that which is greater than yourself. When you feel yourself as a part of a greater whole, that is necessary to control self-indulgence. And so self-confidence means that we can live a balanced, healthy life and that our bodies will be able to manage whatever is given to us. But if you feel as though you are not able to, oh my God, I'm going to get sick. Oh my God, I'm going to die. Then you know what? Your chances of getting sick and your chances of dying are going to be greater. And so I'm not talking about lying to yourself. I'm talking about just really getting in touch with that deeper part of yourself that knows you can and will be okay and knows that you're connected to something greater than yourself, that you're part of a greater whole. I know that's difficult for those who are less spiritual, but Ayurveda teaches that if you can get to that place, then you are going to be more balanced. And that's going to help you. It's going to help you to live a more harmonious life. Okay? You can call it anything you want, God, nature, God by any name, and it's all okay. All right. So that's essential. Stay positive. Keep the healthy, positive neurochemicals flowing. They're going to help your cells, your white blood cells to be healthier, more active and reactive to any threat that comes into your body. Maybe the single most important thing you can do. Because you know what? If you do everything else but you're depressed and you don't think that you're going to survive this, that creates such a depression that I would go as far to say that may be the most important thing that you can do. All right, is to stay positive and keep those positive chemicals flowing through your brain and your body. Keep your digestion healthy. Ayurveda says that in terms of your physical health and well-being, that it's all dependent upon your digestive system. There's a whole science to keeping your digestive system healthy in Ayurveda, more than I can go into here. But I want you to keep your digestive system healthy, learn more about Ayurveda, work with an Ayurvedic practitioner. That means keeping your Agni healthy, which is the power of your digestion, and also your elimination. Both of these are essential to your well-being. If you're not eliminating healthfully and you're not digesting your food healthfully, it means you're either taking in the wrong foods or you're consuming too much or maybe consuming them improperly. You can take a look at my book, Healing Your Life, Lessons on the Path of Ayurveda, for a lot more information about how to maximize the potential of your digestive system and normalize elimination. Take the foods that are best for your Vikruti. Your Vikruti is the current state of the doshas in your body. Pay more attention to your Vikruti than to your Prakriti. Your Prakriti is essential for understanding how to avoid getting out of balance. But once you're out of balance, it's your current state of doshas that are essential to manage. So I want you to know both your Prakriti and your Vikruti, okay? Prakriti and Vikruti, and pay attention to your Vikruti. We always say in Ayurveda that we treat the Vikruti. We try to prevent disease with Prakriti, but the truth is we're all a little bit out of balance. It's the nature of being human. And so you have to understand your Vikruti and know how it is that you're currently out of balance so that you can improve, maximize the potential of your digestive system. Now, in addition with all of this, work with a practitioner to build your OGES. OGES is the protective factor of your body and your mind. When your OGES is healthy, you actually can be confident in your mind and confident in your body, and they are related to each other. OGES comes from properly digesting nourishing food. It comes from there. So it begins with proper digestion. Agni we actually have to make good choices of foods to eat, digest it properly, and extract out the OGES from that food. OGES isn't something we can find in a laboratory. OGES is all the factors in your body that are protective to your well-being and stabilize your physiology, or we would say stabilize homeostasis. Maintain homeostasis in your body, which gives you the best chance to avoid suffering. So build your OGES. I do want to mention a few herbs that are OGES building herbs. These are things that you can take when you're well in order to prevent yourself from getting sicker. And if you have a weak immune system, you can take them as well. It's best if they're prescribed. It's best if they're in a formula that is designed for you, because it means it's going to meet your needs and be properly metabolized. But a few tips for you, okay? A few things that can be helpful. Two herbs come to my mind particularly. One is Guduchi and the other is Amalaki. These two herbs are very beneficial to building up the OGES of your body. Other ones like ashwagandha and shatavari are also very, very good for building up the OGES of your body. And if you just had that and you took it as a supplement while you're well, it's going to support you. It's going to support you. So that's a quick thing that you can do. There's an Ayurvedic Rasayana formula called Chavan Prash, and it's a jelly that tastes wonderful. It's made from Amalaki and many, many other herbs that are cooked into it. It's a fantastic booster of your immune system. And so these are things you can take. Please note with all these herbs, you take them for prevention. You don't take them to cure yourself from coronavirus. You help yourself by building your immune system so that when you encounter it, your white blood cells are better able to fight the infection. Now, let's say you've been doing all these things that I've been talking about. You've been managing your digestive system, managing your elimination system. One more thing, getting good sleep. You want to make sure you get a good night's sleep. You're resting well. All right, you're doing all of that. You're wearing gloves. You're wearing a mask. You're washing your hands. You're using hand sanitizer. You're doing all of these things, but nothing is bulletproof. Nothing is perfect. You wind up getting sick. You wind up getting coronavirus. Now, what do you do? All right. So the first signs of not feeling well, what I want you to do is just a few common sense things. I want you to take zinc. All right. I want you to take zinc, and I want you to get it if you can in the form of zinc picolinate, because it's the best absorbed from your body. Zinc chelate is okay. Zinc gluconate is poorly absorbed. Try to get zinc picolinate. Now, zinc gluconate is in a lot of lozenges, and having one lozenge a day right now is actually a pretty good idea, just to make sure you get a little bit of zinc, and it also keeps your respiratory system moist. And that actually can protect you against the virus, even if you do touch your mouth, all right? So, because it binds to the receptor sites. So have one lozenge a day. It's a very low dose of zinc. It's usually 5 to 7 milligrams of zinc, and that's very good. Zinc picolinate, if you do get sick, you want to take 50 milligrams. 50 milligrams of it. They come in 50 milligrams. That's usually the largest dose. Once per day, don't take more than that, and don't take it for more than 10 days, all right, because it can create some other imbalances in your body. But the research shows that with viruses, that it tends to reduce the intensity of the virus by about 50% and the length of time you're sick by 50%. There's great research out there on zinc picolinate. Vitamin C, the research is mixed, okay, but there's no harm in taking vitamin C. So I'd encourage you to take, if first sign of getting sick, take anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day. The worst thing that happens if you take too much vitamin C is your stools get loose, your bowels get a little bit loose, in which case you know you took too much, so cut it down a little bit, and that'll help you. But I really do recommend that as well. It's also good to rest more, of course, as soon as you're not feeling well. If you run a fever, the most important thing you can do when you're running a fever, there's two things you can do. Two most important things you can do is, number one, let it run. Don't take a fever suppressant like aspirin or ibuprofen, okay? Unless you absolutely have to, because you cannot sleep and rest. But chances are that's all you'll be doing is sleeping and resting. The fever is there to slow you down and activate your immune system. So you don't want to suppress it. What you do want to do is the second thing. You want to make sure you take enough fluids, because when you have a fever, your body is going to be sweating more and you're more likely to get dehydrated. And the greatest concern of fever is not the temperature, it's the dehydration. So you should be sipping water every 15 minutes, maybe even every 5 minutes if you have a very high fever, 100, 200, 300, 4. It is a myth that people are going to get brain damage from an infection, that their fever is going to rise up to 107. That just never happens. It happens from hyperthermia when you find yourself in the wrong environment, okay? So let your fevers run. Let your fevers run. Now, exceptions to that, you got to be really careful with children, because their fevers can spike very high once they get dehydrated, because they're very, very small. And if you're older, don't let that fever spike either. It should be checked on a regular basis. But don't suppress it all the way down. You need that fever in order to help you to get well. Stay hydrated, rest more, take zinc, take vitamin C. And there are some antimicrobial herbs that I want you to have on hand. Antimicrobial herbs fight a wide variety of microbes, and they do it by helping your immune system. These are not antibiotics that are just there to kill the bacteria. They are there to help your immune system fight. They fight viruses and they fight bacteria, they fight fungi. Good to have a couple, or one or two at least, of these available at home. And so you're going to want to have at home things like turmeric, things like echinacea, neem, golden seal. All of these are excellent antimicrobials. At the first sign of not feeling well, start to take them. They're boosting up your immune system, and they're giving you natural antiviral, antibacterial benefits. So I really do recommend that you do that. Okay, have them on hand. Of course, if you have a practitioner, an Ayurvedic practitioner, go and see them, get a formula designed more specifically for you, your needs, your symptoms. One of the symptoms of this condition is a bad cough. And a bad cough is something you may have to manage, and so you want to have cough-relieving herbs. These are expectorants. These are herbs that make it easier to dispel mucus. They make you feel more comfortable. They may, at times, depending upon how it affects you, there are certain ones that will actually decrease mucus productions, others that actually make it easier for you to expel the mucus. So some herbs like licorice, for instance, kantakari, mullein, vamsaroshana, these are all herbs that help with coughs. It's too much to go into about which herb to use exactly when. In an emergency situation, just use them to help you with a cough. If you can, see a practitioner who can design a formula. You may have a dry cough, you may have a moist cough, you may have a hot cough, you may have a cold cough. The formula that we would give for each of these is going to be a little bit different depending upon whether that cough is caused by Vata dosha, Pitta dosha, or Kapha dosha, or a combination of these doshas, because you can have Vata Pitta, Pitta Kapha, Vata Kapha, Vata Pitta Kapha type coughs. And so you need to see a practitioner to get the best care you can. And I'm trying to focus right now more on your own home care. All right. One thing I haven't talked about yet, and then I want to get to your questions, is homemade hand sanitizers. Now, even homemade hand sanitizers can be difficult to get some of the ingredients for today. So I'm going to mention 3 ingredients. First, to use as your base. The first one is ethyl alcohol. All right. Now, during normal times, you just go to the store and you can pick up ethyl alcohol. Today, that's going to be hard to do. But if you can find it, by all means, look for it. Second base is going to be isopropyl alcohol. Isopropyl alcohol also works very, very well. It just doesn't last as long as the ethyl alcohol in terms of its long-term protection for your body. And the third is hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide works excellent, just as well as the isopropyl alcohol and the ethyl alcohol. Again, it doesn't last quite as long, but it is very effective. And you can put these into bottles, little spray bottles, and just have a little pump spray for your hands and wipe them. Now, you can improve upon just that. All right, you can improve upon just that. You could just use that. But if you add just a little bit of aloe to it, add a few drops of aloe, maybe 2 or 3 drops to an ounce. All right, I'm sorry, 2 or 3 drops to about 2 ounces. You don't want to overdo it, because if you dilate these too much, you lose the effectiveness of the alcohol or the hydrogen peroxide. So do about 2 ounces, 2 or 3 drops of a aloe juice would be best. All right, and then just shake it up. In addition to that, you can add certain essential oils to it as well. And so essential oils like tea tree oil would be very good. Another essential oil that is very good is going to be cinnamon. Cinnamon oil has also been shown to have very good antiviral properties. And then I think I mentioned tea tree oil. Most essential oils are going to offer some kind of a benefit. But tea tree and cinnamon are really excellent. Another good one is eucalyptus oil, and that's also antiviral. Now, that's wonderful to add in. You can add a couple of drops of each of those in. It'll also help it to smell nicely. The aloe helps you to protect your hands a little bit from the dryness that can occur, and you're going to be sanitizing yourself at the same time. Now, a question that often comes up is, can I burn essential oils? What if I just do some aromatherapy in a room? Will that help? The answer to that question is yes, and we don't know for sure. All right, so let me explain what I mean by that. Yes, it's been shown that essential oils, that the molecules that go into the air have antiviral properties. You can burn them and you can breathe them in, just like there are herbal smokes called duma in Ayurveda, and you can breathe those in as well. Certain herbs, when they're burned, do offer protection. They will protect you when you breathe them in, and they will bind to the cells and protect you. That said, there's not a lot of studies that have been done that measure how much do you have to burn, how much protection do you get. So I would say yes, and don't rely on just that and think that that is going to be your savior. Okay, let that be one part of the overall approach that you take to your well-being. All right, so you can utilize essential oils and put a few drops into a diffuser, light a candle under it. It'll create a beautiful, calming, peaceful environment, and also offer some benefits. Okay, so I think that's a wise thing to do. I just don't want you to rely 100% on it or think that I said that that's 100% effective. All right. Now, I have some questions that have been coming in, so I want to take your questions. And if you have questions and you haven't typed them in yet, my assistants are here and they are recording your questions so that I can answer some of them now. All right. One person asks, Carly asks, how safe is it to host a friend who's been traveling from Thailand, and what precautions would you recommend? All right, these are such real life questions now. This is where I really want to go, real life. Because people are coming to visit you all the time, not just from Thailand, but from down the road. And so you have to make these decisions. How do you host people in your home? The first thing that I would recommend is to have hand sanitizer available for everybody that comes into your home. So the first thing they do when they come in your home is they use some hand sanitizer. All right, that's going to go a long way. Pay attention to whether or not they have a cold or a flu. If they have a cold or a flu, and you don't know, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, but people still get the cold, common colds. People are still going to get influenza. And so not everybody that's coughing and sneezing is of some mortal threat. Keep that in mind. Chances of them having coronavirus right now in the United States is actually very low. There are many, many, many more cases, 1,000 times as many cases of the flu as there are coronavirus in the United States. So chances are, if they're sick and coughing, they've got a cold or a flu. But that kept in mind, you might want to let people know that if you are sick and you're coming to my home, and that may be that they shouldn't come to your home, but if they do come to your home, they ought to be wearing a mask. Okay, that would make sense. Now, if they're not feeling well in today's environment, it just is everybody's responsibility to try to stay home as much as you can. All right, and try to have other people bring you supplies, bring you food, bring you water, bring you the supplies that you need. So, if they're getting back to Carly's question, if they're feeling well and they've been traveling, I would recommend that they use hand sanitizer. And that's all I'd recommend at this time. Now, if you wanted to be absolutely sure, right? I'm talking about how to reduce risk. You wanted to be absolutely sure, you wouldn't have any guests. Okay? You wouldn't have any guests. That would be the only foolproof way to make sure that you bring it down as close as you can to zero. But I'm not a person who panics, and I'm hoping that maybe this talk today gives you ways to reduce your risk so that you don't have to panic and you can go about your life. Okay. Laurent asks, the key is always to correct any imbalance or vacuity, but is there one dosha more prone to cause the virus than other doshas? That's a really good question. All right. The answer is that depending upon your vikruti, the virus tends to push the dosha. So a kapha type respiratory infection means you're going to get a lot of mucus. A pitta type means your fever is going to get very high. A vata means you're going to have a more dry cough. This disease falls under the category of diseases in the classical textbooks called Vata Shleshmika Jwara. Vata Shleshmika Jwara. Vata dosha, Shleshmika, mucus, Jwara, fever. And all the viruses that are like flu-like viruses, strong respiratory viruses, are more sanipatika, which means all three doshas are disturbed. Okay, so a typical person who gets the coronavirus will see some fluctuating of the three doshas in their body, which makes it more severe, makes it more serious, and why we have to manage the patient that shows up to us. So it's not that one dosha is going to be predominant in this condition. With most diseases, we say that vata is the king. Vata pushes the pitta, which creates the fever. Vata pushes the kapha, which creates the mucus. Vata tends to be king. If you want to control vata dosha, one thing that I haven't mentioned that I can mention now is to make sure that you keep regular routines and that you are sleeping while you wake up and go to bed at the same time. You eat at the same time every day. That will control your vata. And indeed, that will help to keep your immune system and your physiology that much healthier. So those are great questions. Thank you, Carly and Laurent. I have another question from Indigo. What if one has Lyme disease already? What do you do? Any disease you currently already have means you have a higher risk. You're in a higher risk group because you have a secondary condition, a comorbidity, it's called. And so individuals like that have to be careful and take even more caution. It just means you have to not be as relaxed as other people. You are the one, therefore, that should be using a mask no matter where you go. All right, because your immune system is already not functioning as well as we'd like it to be. So don't make it optional. Always be wearing a mask when you go outside. And of course, be even more vigilant about doing the things I talked about to build your immunity, because that's also going to help you with Lyme disease. I had Lyme disease. I was crippled with Lyme disease in 1987, and I was sick for about 7 years. You're going to learn more about my journey to heal from Lyme disease, which at the time was so new in 1987 here in California that they weren't quite sure it was Lyme disease. They They weren't sure if it was Lyme disease or mixed connective tissue disorder. In hindsight, it very much was Lyme disease. And so you can read about that journey in my book, Healing Your Life. All right. Robin asks, hand sanitizers have triclosan, which is an endocrine disruptor. Soap and water work just as well. All right, so that sounds more like a comment than a question, and good to know. Soap and water works great. It just doesn't last, and so you will get a little more lasting effects with the ethyl alcohol and with the isopropyl alcohol than with hand washing. But you should do both. It'd be a really good idea to do both. And as for triclosan, it's one of many chemicals that you'll find in some commercial sanitizers. And those chemicals can be endocrine disruptors. I'm not talking about utilizing something like this on a long-term basis, but if you're immune compromised now and that's all you can get, use it, okay? Use it. Robin makes another comment. Says face masks are pointless unless you have a carbon filter on it. That's debatable. That's debatable. And so the N95 masks are recommended by the CDC, Center for Disease Control, for preventing the spread of the virus. So all I'm doing is reporting. I do need to tell you, I'm not a virologist, okay, nor an epidemiologist. I'm just a health fanatic who is a doctor of chiropractic and a doctor of Ayurveda, who is studying all of this, not only because I'm personally interested, but I also have to guide my students and guide the staff here at the California College of Ayurveda. So keep that in mind. There may be other opinions that are out there. This is based on my research, the best that I'm able to share with you at this time. Another question comes in. How is the college handling workshops and traveling? That's a great question. So our classes are not canceled here at the school. We're a small school. We wipe down our classroom at least twice every day with sanitizer. So we're going beyond any recommendations. Even teachers are being asked to wipe down before they go in the room as well, in addition to the twice per day. In this county, where the college is, we've had no cases of coronavirus. I'm really happy to report that, at least none that have been identified. And that's wonderful news here in Nevada County, California. California has had many, we have not. But even still, our office is being wiped down. Every office is being wiped down every single day with sanitizers. And so we haven't canceled classes, and we have not canceled workshops. We think that at this time, if you're taking all the proper precautions that you can take, you will be just fine at this time. We are keeping up with the recommendations all the time from the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education. We're keeping up with the recommendations of the World Health Organization and so forth. And so if that changes, we notify our students. But otherwise, we're keeping everything sanitized around here, and staff is taking precautions that they feel are appropriate. We're not overly in a state of panic. There are far more cases of influenza than there are coronavirus, and influenza is probably going to kill as many people as this one, and we don't panic about that. If you wanted to get sort of some idea, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but there have been tens of thousands of actually tens of thousands of deaths due to, I believe tens of thousands of deaths due to influenza virus this year, okay? And we've had maybe in the United States 30 or 40 cases of deaths. So it's going to increase. I don't mean to downplay it at all. I say this only to control panic, okay? And we've had probably 1 million cases of flus. And most people get the coronavirus, won't get anything worse than that. I want you to take the proper precautions. I don't want you to be panicked. All right, Tiana asks, I remember in India they sell Ayurvedic herbal cigarettes with no tobacco, just herbs. Have you heard of those? Oh, absolutely. It's part of Duma. Duma is medicated smoke. And so herbs can be utilized in Ayurveda, breathed in, usually for the control of kapha dosha, because they tend to be drying. And so they're breathed in order to reduce mucus secretions. And you can do it with some other herbs that are less harsh. Some are less harsh, some are more harsh. Cloves are really common, and mullein can be used here in the West, and other herbs as well. But yes, herbal cigarettes are are non-tobacco used as a medicine. Mickey asks, so is hugging going away? We yogis prefer hugs to handshakes. Yeah, I understand what you mean. And I don't think they're going away for very long, but for a short while, you might want to namaste. And as a yogi, namaste means that the divine in me recognizes the divine in you. It is a deep, deep soul greeting and a beautiful way to connect with people. And for right now, hug those that are most important to you because we need to be hugged. It's part of our well-being. But I would not hug everybody, and I'd be a little bit more judicious about that. Should we take supplements? I talked about taking maybe a zinc lozenge. I think that's a good idea. In terms of other multivitamin, multiminerals, it's debatable. There's mixed research out there in terms of their benefits. If you have a nutritional deficiency, by all means take them. But if you don't, it's not something that I automatically recommend. Breathing space says, that's breathing space is the writer. Thanks for the immune system tips and focus on what we can address. Everyone can affect their own immune system, even if other aspects feel beyond our control. Respond versus react, address your own stress, and help out your nervous system. Absolutely. Connie wants to know if she can see this video all the way back from the start. Yes, when it's all done, you can play this video. It'll be on our Facebook page, both in the group and also in the California College of Ayurveda Facebook page. So yes, you absolutely can do that. Julie lost audio. She wants to know if the recording can be accessed. So yes, again, it can be. Let's see what else we have here in terms of questions. Tracy sent in a question. Can I speak briefly about the correlation of consciousness with this virus? What a great question. I got to talk about that briefly. That would be a wonderful discussion of itself, but I'll do my best. I'll do my best. From an Ayurvedic perspective, everything begins with consciousness. And so consciousness, and we could say consciousness itself is pure, and consciousness itself is perfect. However, our own individual relationship to consciousness, which we could call our personal consciousness, is always to some degree disturbed. Okay, it's always disturbed simply by being incarnated into this world. Our experience of this world is disturbed, and those disturbances are reflected in the mind. And they're reflected in the mind in terms of the thoughts and feelings that we have. Those are disturbances in the field of consciousness called chitta. And these vrittis, or these disturbances, are experienced as thoughts and feelings in the mind. And those thoughts and feelings in the mind, as I pointed out earlier, then affect the physiology of our bodies. And so those neurochemicals in our brain wind up affecting every cell of our body. So we could say that disease begins when we forget our true nature as spirit, is going to be experienced within the mind as a disturbance in consciousness or awareness, and then manifests itself in the body. Now, the highest cure for all disease is going to be to have a clear, pure consciousness. We could use the word sattva to describe that stillness in the field. It's never perfectly still as long as we're embodied beings and living in this world. So we want to do what we can to live as harmoniously as possible, to be as peaceful and harmonious as possible so that we will make healthy choices in our lives and control those doshas. And that's what's going to keep us as healthy as we can be. So I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to learn what you can do in order to be well. I want to leave you with one final thought, and this really flows from Tracy's question about consciousness. You know, it's difficult to have that perfect consciousness of stillness, because if you did, you'd just sit there all day meditating and you wouldn't do anything else. We're engaged in the world. But there is something you can do that comes and reflects your spiritual growth and your consciousness, and that is to be an expression of love in the world. Try to be the love that you want to see in the world. Speak love, act love, try to be as caring as you can to everybody around you, especially during these stressful times. Love has many, many facets. Compassion is one of those. Generosity is one of those. Kindness is one of those, as well as feeling that heartfelt love for someone else. There's so many forms of love. Just find the form that works for you and express it as often as you can. That's going to help your immune system tremendously, tremendously. So when you love and when you feel loved, this does a lot to secure your own well-being. All right. Many blessings to you on your path to love. Many blessings to you on your path to health and well-being. Namaste.